Welcome to the Tesla Economist. Please hit the thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. In Biden's $2.25 trillion infrastructure plan, the White House are proposing a $174 billion investment to win the EV market. China has committed $100 billion to grab this market, both battery cell production but also in other component parts of electric vehicles, Senator Debbie Stabenow said. We better take it seriously. And Representative Dan Kildee says, EVs are where the market is going, full stop. The only question that we have to answer is, are these going to be vehicles made by American workers? We're all aware of the current $7,500 tax credit for 200,000 cars per automaker. So what's the purpose of this? Well, it will allow EV manufacturers to operate and compete against ICE vehicles, whilst the battery technology is still being improved. The fact they're able to sell vehicles through this process at the reduced cost means they can benefit from economies of scale that will eventually bring down prices, so that when the tax credits end, then the product has hopefully dropped in price enough by that stage that they can compete naturally against ICE vehicles due to the increased investment in R&D on batteries and EVs. This is very much what has happened with Tesla. They are now able to undercut the equivalent ICE vehicles. Currently, Tesla and GM have already exhausted their 200,000 cap. The new proposal is mainly about extending this cap to an additional 200,000 EV customers for each automaker. There are also other options that have been discussed, such as ongoing credits, but perhaps the rebate would be lower, at around $5,000. Or possibly the rebates might only be for more modestly priced EVs, ruling out any rebates on the likes of the Porsche Taycan, Audi e-tron GT, or Tesla Model S and X, which, to be honest, I can totally understand. I mean, otherwise taxpayers are literally subsidizing wealthy people to feel better about themselves because they can drive an electric car. These tax credits go to the consumer, i.e. the consumer get a $7,500 tax rebate if they purchase an EV. But the purpose of these tax credits is to get more EVs on the road. However, Biden's doing it by incentivizing consumers with lower prices. But that in no way impacts the number of EVs sold. All it does is increase demand, which is already high enough. The reason there aren't more EVs on the road isn't because people don't want to buy them, it's because they're taking too long to manufacture. All this tax credit does is make demand even higher than supply, with a result of no extra cars on the road. In other words, the tax credit is totally pointless, and in no way helping increase EVs on the road. If anything, it's just going to help more affluent consumers afford a nice EV, subsidized by the taxpayer. Not very well thought through, was it? Oops. They're obviously clueless though, given the fact they think they can get 500,000 charging points built out across the US by 2030. No, that's just not going to be possible. And sure, you might say that they can place them on government land, like on sidewalks perhaps, or in lieu of ticket meters, when cars are parked on roads. Yes, sure, government have plenty of places they can add chargers, but the chargers still have to be built in the first place. And who's going to make those? Tesla make the most chargers. Tesla are building a new factory that will make 10,000 chargers a year in China. At that rate, it would still take 50 years to reach Biden's target. I really have no idea how he's planning on achieving this, or where this crazy number was derived. Anyway, it's government. When do they ever come through with what they say? I recall something about a wall with the last president. But their best chance would be to work with Tesla and ask them to make more supercharger factories and supply Tesla with the land available. More chargers would be beneficial to Tesla. Charging needs to be ubiquitous. You want to drive to work and plug in whilst at your job. You want to go to the mall and plug in and charge while you're shopping. It doesn't have to be a super fast charger, necessarily, particularly if you're at work for 8 hours or spending an hour shopping. And this is the way it's headed. Of course, though, one of Tesla's many competitive advantages is their charging network. If there were more chargers for everyone, then that would also level out the playing field more for the competition. One of the issues with non-Tesla EVs is it's much harder to do longer road trips. The likes of Electrify America have a much smaller distribution of chargers. Their plans aren't close to what Tesla will accomplish. Remember, Tesla had a massive lead in charging locations, with a huge first-mover advantage. They were able to secure the best locations for chargers. But if the government are allowing chargers on their land, then they'll have good locations for the competition too. Although I believe that some Tesla chargers actually can work on non-Teslas too, and it's more to do with the manufacturer choosing different types of plugs and sockets. Remember, the government also plan on electrifying their fleet. They say it like they can just simply order the EVs, or get some contractor to supply them. Yeah, well, who's that going to be? All EV manufacturers are busy making their own autos. Why have they suddenly manufactured 500,000 government vehicles? It would be the opportunity cost of sacrificing their market share in the EV consumer market, which is worth substantially more. You might think Rivian might be suitable, as they're going to make vans for Amazon. Well, Amazon wants those vans for themselves, and there are only so many batteries to go around. Nothing spare for the government, or United States Postal Service. The US are just playing game theory with China, who are showing signs of becoming the greenest country. No, sorry, I got that wrong. I meant who can convince the world they are becoming the greenest country through marketing. China isn't anything close to green, as they still build a new coal power plant every week. But they do make cute panda solar farms at least. You know, it's all just politics. I think ultimately China needs to go nuclear. Whoa, did I just say that? But I'm not sure they could supply enough solar farms to run that country. Elon says the US just need 100 miles by 100 miles of solar. That's achievable. I don't think China can do the same, although they would still highly benefit from energy battery storage. Okay, so are Biden's tax credits actually any benefit to Tesla? Well, of course they are, right? It essentially means all Teslas are $7,500 cheaper to each customer. How could that not help Tesla? Well, the thing is, Tesla have marketed their prices without a tax credit. Well, actually initially with a 200,000 limit on tax credits, which meant when the Model 3 was launched, it was actually a lot more expensive, as Tesla had higher prices to adjust for the tax credit, and were able to lower prices once the tax credit had expired. But now if a tax credit is reintroduced, does that mean Tesla will raise their prices by $7,500? The tax credit goes to the consumer, not the auto company. Its purpose is to incentivize consumers to buy EVs. But Tesla already have enough consumers buying their EVs, in fact, more consumers than cars they can make. And this will continue to be the case. With an extended tax credit, it's simply going to create more demand for Tesla that they can cater to. Do you see it? There's no benefit to Tesla here. And if it's only an additional 200,000 cars, then it will be expired this year. It just means a few customers got lucky choosing to buy at a specific time. For Tesla to benefit, they would have to raise their prices $7,500 so that they receive the tax credits rather than the consumer, indirectly. But that's only an extra $1.5 billion anyway. Tesla have made nearly that much just on their Bitcoin investments this year. It's hardly the make or break of the company, particularly when they already have so much cash on hand. They simply don't need any more. But okay, $1.5 billion is not nothing, and it's a nice extra bit of capital. But will it make any difference to Tesla's plans? Will it mean they can build an extra factory with the capital? No, not likely. It might just be used to pay off some debt. Tesla's growth is not constrained in any way by capital, so more capital would possibly not actually make any difference. However, as for the competition, it means that they can now enter the market with prices an extra $7,500 higher, meaning that they may not need to make a loss on each car sold, and can possibly survive a bit longer with the extended cap, perhaps long enough for technologies to improve enough to actually give them a chance. You see, Tesla have a positive profit margin on every car they sell, without any tax credits. The competition certainly do not, unless possibly they charge over $100,000 for their cars. You see, Tesla doesn't benefit, but the competition do, which inversely means it's bad for Tesla, due to the fact the competition get this extra lifeline. They get to sell their non-profitable EVs for that much longer, and get to survive that much longer until they can finally find a way to make a profit. Except for GM, of course. They're in the same position as Tesla. They expired all their credits on the Chevrolet Bolt. GM could quite easily use the new credits on their new Cadillac EV or some of their other new EVs coming out, by which I mean they can charge an extra $7,500 for these cars now, which they likely couldn't have for the Bolt. Except the government may not allow the credits for these expensive models. On the other hand, I doubt the automakers are allowed to choose and pick which of their models they want the tax credits to be available to. However, if there was a recession and Teslas were $7,500 cheaper, then ultimately there should still be enough demand for Tesla to have very little trouble during a recession. However, we were talking about 200,000 more cars here, which is likely just a couple of months' sales soon enough. Therefore, this would only help for a very short period of a recession. If the government ended up going with an uncapped tax credit though, then that changes everything. Even if the rebate is lower at around $5,000, and that still makes all the difference. It lowers most of Tesla's prices by more than 10%. A Model 3 standard range would only be $30,000. Although in my last video, I explained how Tesla would probably be okay during a recession anyway. Talking about a non-capped limit EV credit, what would that mean for the Model 2? Could that mean Tesla could have a model starting at a price at around $20,000? Then what can I say? There is no way Tesla can make anywhere near enough Model 2s to supply US demand, not even close. Not that they could at the full $25,000 either. $20,000 is just ridiculous. But again, if we went into a recession, then Tesla would thrive even more with this model, as demand for the Model 2 could actually increase through a recession anyway. But with a tax credit too, then Tesla would just cruise through any market downturn, whilst their competition are crucified. If it was me trying to stimulate the EV market in the US, then I would take a different approach. I would start with incentivizing domestic battery production, along with research and development as much as possible, offering perhaps a $25 credit to every manufacturer per kilowatt hour of battery they sell. This would dramatically improve their profit margins, which would incentivize more battery production to open up. Currently, it's the Chinese, Japanese, and Korean battery companies that control the majority of battery supply. Okay, sure, Panasonic does manufacture in Tesla's Nevada facility, but it's not entirely the same. I would also offer subsidies in building the initial battery factories. We all know it's battery supply that is the fundamental thing holding back EVs. The objective is to get the cost of the vehicle down. Well, the main cost is the batteries, so if you work on lowering the cost of batteries from manufacturing level, it will be passed on to the consumers. And if the government was to offer any rebates on consumers purchasing EVs, then they should offer it only for US manufacturers, and only if the car was actually built in the US. Sorry Ford, your Mexican Mustangs wouldn't be valid. It makes sense to create as many jobs in your own country as you can, if it's the taxpayers' money you are using. In fact, it's kind of insane that they're giving the likes of German and Korean companies rebates too. This has nothing to do with America or making Tesla win. It's merely what makes sense from an economic standpoint for a government to benefit its own nation. It would also give the US a better chance in winning EV technology. Although I still don't think it would make much difference to Tesla either way. I think Tesla would just sell as many cars with or without the government's help really. Tesla would just end up with a more positive balance sheet. It's more the regulation on FSD that will impact Tesla as far as the government is concerned. With the current plan, it feels more like the government is simply evening out the playing field for the rest of the EV competition in the US, whilst at the same time not likely increasing much supply. Tesla have worked so hard to get their prices down low enough to make an affordable EV, whilst making great margins without tax credits. And they have been choosing all the best spots for charging stations due to such an early vision of the future of autos. On the other hand, let's just remember, this is the government. The things they are saying show just how clueless they are when it comes to EVs. It's all politics, literally. It's a battle of egos between China and America. Who can show they are the greenest of countries or ahead of one another in technology? When you break it down, it's actually capitalism versus socialism, or freedom versus totalitarianism, how some may view it. Not too dissimilar to the competition of who could be first to the moon. Anyway, that's just my analysis on Biden's plans. Thanks for listening, please hit the thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe.